See, you're not supposed to discriminate against people, certainly not on the basis of their skin color. And yet, here we are in 2024 pretending what it is that the UW is doing as part of its commitment to equity and inclusion is in fact equitable and inclusive. They're being sued by an organization called Do No Harm because they have a race-based support directory that's meant to help medical students at UW Medicine unless they're white. White kids, nope, sorry, you're out. This lawsuit is over the UW Medicine's BIPOC Physicians Directory, which is exclusively provided to connect non-white students with non-white physicians to ask questions, get career advice, just network. But they're only allowed to do it with, quote, identities similar to their own. Now, in addition to that, this private, racially exclusionary directory is all about setting the groundwork for your future once you graduate from medical school and figure out, hey, I'd like to do my residency in this region. Could you tell me a little bit more about it? Do you have any connections? Could you help me out? The UW said that it is exclusively for BIPOC students, which they say include Black African diaspora, Native American/Indigenous, Native Hawaiian/Pacific Islander, Asian, Latin or Latinx, can't be Latino. It's got to be Latin or Latinx, Middle Eastern, and North African. Now, the lawsuit says, in addition to excluding white students who wish to take advantage of a valuable networking tool, the directory excludes white physicians, even those who would be great resources for medical students of all races. And so Do No Harm, the reason why they have standing is one of its members is an unidentified doctor, this goes by Member A, who happens to also be a UW alum, who happens to be white, thus is ineligible to provide his medical advice and his experience to students merely because he happens to be white. So they're trying to get this to be stopped. Now, UW is proving once again that, like so many other liberal institutions, they are less concerned with education and more interested in woke racial segregation that we're supposed to claim is actual equity. This is blatantly racist. And the irony is insane to me. The very people who scream at the top of their lungs about the importance of inclusivity and dismantling racial barriers. We got to get rid of the institutionalized racism. They're creating that. That's quite literally what they're creating here. This is what we call an earned lawsuit. They earned it. And I hope they pay a steep price for it. By giving students access to a directory on the basis of their skin color, they are giving those students a leg up, which is exactly the opposite of the equity that they say they want. And of course, they don't want equity. They want to punish white students. They want to punish them for historic racism that, of course, existed, but that they never took part in. They had nothing to do with it. They had literally nothing to do with it. And yet it's the UW that claims that this creates a quote-unquote safe space for students who happen to be non-white. Because apparently white doctors are too terrified or terrifying to connect with, or I guess they're not capable of helping so-called BIPOC students because they happen to be white, and the kid asking for help happens to be Latinx. Really? And you know that this is less about Native Americans or Asians. They're really doing this for Black and Latino students because that's the only group they generally try to help out. Blacks, Latinos. That's it. They forget Asians and oftentimes treat Asians as if they're white. In fact, because of the rules that they have in place at the UW, they have effectively affirmative action still in place. They're just not calling it that. And it's to the detriment of Asians because they have a law in Washington State that the UW Medicine, as well as Wazoo's medical school, they have to create a goal of getting a more diverse student body because there are too few Black, Latino, Native American doctors in Washington State. And we're overrepresented with Asians and whites. Thus, they're trying to cap it so they can have more Black students, more Native American students, more Latin/Latinx students. That is what they're doing. But they seem to think future doctors who are Black wouldn't feel comfortable talking to other professionals in this field because they don't look like them. Dare I say, it might be reasonable, if that's true, if what UW is implying here is true, it might be reasonable to conclude that they should not also see patients who are white. If you're uncomfortable talking with a doctor and networking with them because they're white, would you not also be uncomfortable with a white patient? Wouldn't you naturally jump to that position then if you're someone looking at this from the perspective of being discriminated against because of the color of your skin? You don't want to talk to someone who looks like me. That means you don't want a patient who looks like me. Why would we conclude anything else? And that, of course, does a disservice to these students because I don't even believe that. But the UW apparently does. This is racial discrimination. There's no other way to talk about this. And it should have no place at any publicly funded institution. Certainly not a university. But of course, the UW doesn't care about that. They don't care about fairness. They want to signal to the far left that, hey, we're like you. Don't we get some points? Didn't we earn some social currency here? Some street cred? We're woke like you. Come join us. They seem to have forgotten about the importance of training competent doctors. They just want to make sure that non-white students get separate but equal resources. That kind of sounds like something that I thought we were against. Is this the Jim Crow South at the UW campus? Is this what we want just in reverse, right? We want a woke leftist twist to it all? Because y'all understand, UW, that doesn't make the racism any better. You know that, right? It's still actual racism. And so now they're getting sued, and they're going to lose. They're going to be humiliated publicly, but they're not going to see it as public humiliation. They're going to see it as standing up for Black and brown students or medical students of color. And of course, that's how they'll frame this. We're just trying to help kids who are marginalized. Are they marginalized on your campus? It doesn't seem that way. It seems quite the opposite. It seems like you're actively trying to marginalize white kids for being white. I know. They have that fatal flaw of white skin. Oh my gosh. If you had a whites only directory, would we all immediately call it racist?
Yeah.
We even have a special candle to give you courtesy of Bath and Body Works or whatever that place was.
Yeah.
What was it, Bath and Body Works?
The clandle.
The clandle. It's just for you. We would all call it out. I would call it out. You guys would call it out. It's wrong. And yet they do it in reverse, and we're supposed to say, oh, that's so evolved. It's so innovative. I'm so glad that they're celebrating communities of color. They don't want equality. They have a racially driven agenda that they simply call equity. And it's all a scam. And this is insulting to students. It is insulting to the professionals. This is something that doesn't actually create opportunities. It builds up walls. That's all it does. And this is a college, like so many others, that need to learn the hard way that you do not get to pick and choose who gets access to a mentorship directory based on the color of their skin, because that, by definition, go with me for a second, is racism. Perhaps you've not been paying attention to all those anti-racist courses you force on everybody else, or the problem, you have been paying attention to the anti-racist DE&I courses you're forcing on everybody, because this is the kind of crap that they push. Now, if you want to call this out with me, if you want to highlight this horrific idea and wonderful lawsuit, go to KTTH.com, read the story I wrote on it, and then post it everywhere. We don't stop this unless people are made aware of this.